Greetings, truth seekers, paradigm busters, new world orders, civil disobedience, freedom fighters, free thinkers, higher mammals, good people of all types. How's it going? My name is Michael Parker, and welcome to the 20th episode of the Electric Pyramid, coming to you as always from an undisclosed location somewhere in Hollyweird, Spooky Town, California. And ladies and gentlemen, in the words of Tony Stark, it is good to be back. We were off the air for 2 weeks, a little Mercury retrograde type shenanigans, and some of the crew was a little under the weather, and just had to take a break, man. Had to clear had to clear the brain and come back at it fresh. And here we are tonight, ready to do this thing. Did you feel the solar eclipse today? It was a partial solar eclipse. I went out, showed my daughters. I took a couple of pieces of paper. We went out into the front yard with our backs to the sun, because you don't stare directly into the sun. And as we all know, and I poked the little dot in the notebook paper and put the other notebook paper below that. We had our backs to the sun, and lo and behold, yes, you could actually see the eclipse, and that was pretty cool. My daughters were impressed that Daddy knew how to do things like that, and it was pretty cool. And I hope you guys got to see it or experience it. I know that it was in the workday for a lot of you. But a lot of people think that eclipses are very special and magical times, and I can't disagree with that. I've got to say that autumn in and of itself, coming up the end of October, coming up on Halloween, or Samhain, as we're going to be talking about tonight, is in itself a magical time. This is actually my favorite time of the year. The air's getting colder, a little bit cooler. There's a little briskness in the air. The leaves are falling. I love autumn. For me, listen, I'm a Scorpio. The sun entered Scorpio today. This is my time, man. I love it when it begins to get a little darker and the days are shorter. It just feels good to me. And speaking of feeling good, I always feel good when my co-pilot, Joe Kiernan, is at the helm. Joe Kiernan, greetings.
Greetings, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad that you're feeling better.
Thank you. Me too.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to call him out, but Joe has been a little bit ill. So send a bunch of good vibes Joe's way, and let's get him healed up. And
thank you.
Because we missed him, and he's like a shining, smiling, good dude. And when he's sick, it's not a good thing.
Although I was really enjoying what you were talking about with the eclipse and showing your children. I thought that was fantastic. I'm sure they were very impressed when you did show your little reverse magic trick.
Well, they were a little impressed. I think it didn't take them long to be over it, but they were impressed momentarily, and I had to show them. And weirdly enough, I'm slightly embarrassed to say that in all the years that I've known about being able to do that with eclipses, I had never done it. Have you ever done that?
When I was young, I had a teacher, maybe in like 6th grade, who showed us during an eclipse and did it, but I haven't done it since, no.
Yeah. Well, I always thought this is really unsensational, and why would I want to do that? But today I was like, you know what? I've got to show the girls this. Let's go see it. So I went out there and did a little test run, and I'll be darned, it really works, and it was quite cool.
However, with the last, about 2 weeks ago, we had a lunar eclipse.
That's right, on the 8th.
And I did go out with the kids with my good camera and zoomed in, and we recorded it kind of like a time lapse. So
nice.
When we play it back, you could see it progresses. They enjoyed that a lot, and so did I. I really liked doing it with them. It was really cool.
Do you have still shots, or do you have video of that?
I have both.
Wow, we ought to put that on YouTube.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
We ought to use that in one of our videos at some point.
It'll be on this one.
Oh, perfect. Right on, man. But
right on, dude.
That works. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. I wanted to mention the eclipse because, like I say, I don't know about you, Joe, but I know you're a Pisces.
I'm feeling
water.
it, man.
Yeah, man. You're a water sign. You're in simpatico with me, and I love autumn. I love this time of year. And Scorpio obviously is a water sign. It is a deep and mystical sign, and it's no surprise that Halloween or Samhain would happen at this time of year. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Are you guys big Halloween people in your house?
It depends on what candy is given, of course. That's how I rate it. But yes, we do. We do the decorations. However, it's not a team dressing up event.
Right.
But I will partake to a degree, like a hat or a cool shirt or something like that.
Wow, that sounds like my oldest daughter. She's kind of going in a non-costume costume. I've challenged her to come up with something else, but her favorite character is a villain in this kind of teen drama that she likes. So she's going as this particular villain who really just wears a black mask and a hoodie.
That's fantastic.
So that's what she's going as. And then my younger daughter, believe me, we are so unlike in some ways. She's going as a cop.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
Right on. Right on.
I was like, wow, I did not see that coming. But okay. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. And she does make the cop uniform look pretty good. So, yeah, I love Halloween, and the more Reese's peanut butter cups they bring home, the better.
Oh, yeah. Now you're talking.
Right. And that's like crack, man. It's like, bring me about 50 of those.
Oh, yeah.
But all right, all silliness aside, I wanted to bring that up. And the only downer of the evening, I guess there's a lot, I mean, depending on how many you want to look at. Apparently, I guess this evening we got the first official notice that there is Ebola in New York City tonight, which, it's not a surprise. I mean, who's coming out with Ebola? People in the medical world. And this person is a doctor who just returned from Guinea. And he's the first person in the Big Apple to test positive for the virus. And so the good news on all this, I think, is I really don't think this is going to within the U.S. I do not think this is going to be the terrible thing that people have feared that it was going to be. Because listen, hospitals. Ebola is not the only dangerous disease in the world that hospitals have to deal with. And while they didn't really get it right in Dallas, and some of the protocol seems to have been missing, and certainly that woman should not have been allowed to fly.
No doubt.
The truth of the matter, though, is that so far we're doing pretty good. I mean, we've only had one person die within the U.S. of Ebola, and I think we've had 5-6 people stricken now. So I really don't think, unless we continue to bring people back with Ebola, now that remains to be seen.
But you know where I'm excuse me, I'm just hung up on the whole Ebola thing still.
Right.
Because Ebola's been around for a little while now.
Absolutely.
And I know the last big discussion of Ebola I can recall in the news was immediately after the 9/11 attacks. There was concern that Ebola was going to be one of the biochemicals used if biochemicals were in fact to be used.
Well, certainly there was the sketchy anthrax envelopes.
Sure. But I mean, Ebola's been around since definitely 9/11 and before, but people have been coming and going from that area, that region of Africa, to the United States since 9/11, just as often as they are today.
Right. And
so I don't understand how it all of a sudden is becoming a fearing pandemic here. Caught me off guard on this one.
Well, absolutely. And listen, I'm not going to I'm sure that there's other people on the network who have had a lot to say about this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But I will say this. Listen, I think Ebola was discovered in the mid-'70s. And certainly there is talk that this is a different strain of Ebola, that perhaps it's even a weaponized version of Ebola. And now, when you start talking about things like that, then who would have made it? Did it come from Fort Detrick or something? I don't know. Certainly AIDS.
Keep my ear to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're not out of the woods. Don't. I'm not saying that, but I do think that I don't think it's going to be as bad here as some people were fearing that it was going to be. All of that could be wrong, though, if they continue to bring people back with Ebola.
Or get on cruise ships, which just breed germs and disease anyway.
Listen, my wife and I have said for years, no cruise ships, period.
Right, I'm with you right there, buddy.
Brother, you never hear about anything really good coming from cruise ships. It's like, people disappear off the cruise ship.
800 sick.
Yeah, 1-800-GROSS. I mean, it's
Right.
just so yeah. Those are just sailing cesspools. But anyway, so hopefully the CDC and the medical industry knows what it's doing and can handle this. And we're certainly sorry to hear that this gentleman's sick.
Right.
And listen, I tell you what, in Africa they still have a world of trouble, no question. But so we continue to pray about that and hope it doesn't get any worse. But back to the particular topic at hand tonight, the guest that we're going to be speaking tonight is a woman, Christine Jones. She is a true witch, a real witch, not someone posing as a witch on a sitcom, not someone in a reality show. This is a woman who is a witch. And not only was she a witch, she was a student of Sybil Leek. And if you know anything about contemporary witchcraft, certainly Sybil Leek is one of the most famous witches, probably of the last 100 years. And I believe she passed away in the early 80s. Both Sybil and Christine Jones, who we're going to be speaking with tonight, were residing in, I believe, Melbourne, Florida, towards the end of Sybil's life. And this interview that you're going to hear tonight, I had the pleasure of kind of becoming friends with Christine, and we had written back and forth on some various topics. And she's also curious about the UFO enigma as well. We discussed that. But I had asked her, can I get your point of view on witchcraft? And so we sat down and we had this conversation, which Joe is going to cue for you in just a second. So the person that you're going to be hearing is me talking to a real witch, and her name is Christine Jones. And enjoy, and I'll see you towards the top of the hour.
Before there was Halloween, there was another holiday. I don't know if you'd even call it a holiday. That's actually not really the correct word for it, but it was called Samhain. And to explain Samhain, I've invited the person that I think is the most appropriate person to explain all this to us. And she's a friend of mine. Her name is Christine Jones. She's probably the world's most famous living witch. And today she's going to be on, and she's going to tell us about her religion, how she got involved in this, who her mentor was, and then she's going to explain how this idea of Samhain, what it meant to the pagans and people of ancient times, and how it has evolved into this secular holiday, which we know as Halloween. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show Christine Jones.
Hi, Michael.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I'm really going to enjoy this.
Well, tell me this now, because I've known you a couple of years, and you're actually, honestly, the first witch that I've ever known, and the discussions I've had with you have always been very enlightening, and you're this wonderful, compassionate person, and there's a lot
sometimes.
Sometimes, absolutely. I mean, we all have those off days where we get a little edgy, but what I was going to say, there's a lot of misinformation out there, I believe, in the public about what witches are, and there are many different types. So maybe if you could tell us about your life, where you came from, and how you got involved in this.
Okay. I met up with the late Sybil Leek in 1977. She was the world's most famous witch at that time, and in some ways she still is. She's still around, still in people's memories. Mm-hmm. I knew her from December the 21st at 10 p.m. in 1977. That is when I became a witch, until she died in 1986 on October the 26th. And she wanted to die on the 31st, but she didn't make it that far. Mm-hmm. Through her, I had an out-of-body experience at that 10 o'clock hour. And at that time, I experienced something it was phenomenal. What happened was, I know what happens at the point of death. Your memory banks are fully restored. Now, I experienced it. You then are taken by angels. She called them angels, or spirits, whatever you want to say. And you're taken to the realms of the god and goddess. You've got your memory bank, so you don't need anyone with a book or anything else. And you judge yourself. Nobody judges you. You say the whole thing. You have no control over it. The god and goddess are right in front of you. And then they evaluate what you've done in your life. So if when you were a kid you kicked the dog, and when you grew up you belonged to the Humane Society, you've done well.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep doing it, you got bad karma.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing was I experienced love that nothing on earth could even go near it. And it's a sense of being loved. And then in a sort of ball of white light, I was returned to earth. The last thing I remember was my mother goddess holding my face in her hand saying, "You are so loved."
Christine, the night you had this experience, this was the night that you became a witch?
Yes.
And Sybil Leek induced this
Yes.
experience?
Yes.
How does she do that? Or did she do that?
She did. Yes, she did. 7 nights of intense concentration at 10 o'clock at night for 7 nights in a row before that. She took me back in time to when I was a child, bringing it forward. The happiest moments, the saddest moments, angry moments. It was a whole series. I've got it all written down. It's too long to go into. But it was fantastic. It went on for about half an hour each night at 10 o'clock until that 7th night, and it was December the 21st. It was the winter solstice. But, of course, I didn't know that then. Then she invited me to come to Florida to be with her, and I did. I just uprooted everything, and off I went.
Right.
I didn't particularly care.
And how did you meet up with her? I mean, did you know that you wanted to become a witch, or?
I got into trouble. I went to a seance of some sort, I don't know what it was, where they were doing regressive hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And people be careful of regressive hypnosis. I got too deeply into it. I was doing it so far, and the lady who did it didn't know how to bring you out of it properly and left me in where I was. So I was stuck in a time warp. But in that time, I knew I became a witch. I was a witch. I knew I was a witch. And in the morning, I said, "I'm a witch. My name is Keridwen." I knew my other name, but didn't know how all this happened. Had no idea.
You had tapped into a past life or something as a witch while under? Okay, I got you.
Had no idea what was happening. My roommate at the time, she said, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
She died since, and she couldn't get me away from it. It was constant. I went to New York. I had to see Herman Slater, who since died, and he had a witch store. And finally, I found a book by Sybil Leek, and I wrote to her, and she wrote back. And that's how that experience went into action. And I became a witch that night, and I've never looked back.
Okay.
The way she taught me the religion, and people need to hear this. We have a mother goddess and a father god who are equal in all ways, and we have none before them. Then we have gods and goddesses who rule over the birds, the sea, the lands, the sky, the universe. They don't have much to do with us here on earth. Then you have the 7 major families of archangels, one for each day of the week. Cassiel, Aniel, Sachiel, Samuel, Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And every hour of every day is covered by one of those families, the table of angels that you can get and look at. And each person, according to their day, date, and hour of birth, has a guardian angel from their family. So you have to go to the hour of birth to find out who your angel is.
Okay.
And that angel family will stay with you from the day you are born till the day you die, and they'll take you for judgment. Then we say there are guardian angels, which are the angels who are in the process of learning, but they come down to earth to stay with us, to guard us through our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we always have 1 or 2 or 3 with us. And then you have regular angels who are getting ready to come back to earth to reincarnate, because witches believe in reincarnation very firmly.
Mm-hmm.
The word witch means wise one. The word pagan is a truncated form of the word pagani. It's Latin for one who dwells in the country. Heathen is heathen, one who dwells on the heath. A coven is a covenstead or meeting place where witches meet. The cauldron is the cooking pot that used to be in the Middle Ages when they walked across the heath to cook. The witch would carry a cauldron, a cooking pot, and they didn't put bat's wings or anything like that. They probably put a chicken in there or something like that. The broom is used to sweep the ground before we do worship.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing sinister. The word spell, it simply means a period of time when we concentrate intently for one thing and one thing only. Now, Christians do the same as we do when they pray, but they pray for multiple things. We focus on one. Concentration. So a spell means a period of time. Look it up in the dictionary.
Right now, go sit down for a spell.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a period of time. That's all it means. The witch's hat, the conical hat, came at the time when they made fun of us, when they started the persecution, and the conical hats were in fashion then, so anyone who wore a conical hat was out of step. In 1484, Pope Innocent VIII issued a papal bull, and it was bull, stating that it was the thing to do to kill witches.
Mm-hmm.
He then proceeded to make it a law. And he went on doing this. There were 9 million people killed, and many of them weren't witches.
My God, that is a huge amount of people.
It's a huge amount, and I'll tell you the rest. He then decided it was unfashionable to murder people for their religion, so he lifted this dogma or bull, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But they then proceeded to write our history.
Yeah.
That's like the Nazis writing the history of the Jews.
Yes.
And they wrote trash. And they've never to this day have they apologized to us. They should be down on their knees saying they're sorry. Look at their own disgrace with the pedophiles throughout the church.
Certainly.
And they've never said they're sorry to the witches who hadn't done anything to anyone.
Last week, our guest that was on the show is an astrologer, and he was talking about many pieces of art within the Vatican that actually show the astrological signs and symbols clearly, and, they were waving the finger at us not to get involved with this or that.
Yeah. And the early popes used to practice angel magic.
Ooh.
Oh, yes.
Now, that's a mind blower, I'm sure, to many people.
Yeah. Because the angels, the archangels, the 7 majors, each have gifts that they give to man, and you can freely ask of them. Castiel does real estate, takes care of the elderly, sick, and infirm, and he finds missing persons and lost children. Aniel's the angel of love, lovers, lust, and friendship. We don't deny lust.
Right. Well, yeah.
Sachiel is health and wealth. Who's our next one?
Let me just interrupt for a second. You guys, we are speaking with Christine Jones. She is a witch. We're going to be talking about the origins of Halloween. Actually, used to be called Samhain and means different things. And right now, Christine is explaining her beliefs and her background as a witch. If you would like to pose a question to Christine, our number here is 888-495-2762, or just go to the comment page and you can send us an email as well. I'm sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, Raphael does legal matters, the arts and poetry. Sachiel does health and immediate wealth. No, wealth and immediate health. So if you're immediately sick, he was the one to go to. Michael, he does music, physical development. And, of course, is the best known of the angels. Mm-hmm. Gabriel is about pregnancy and travel by water. Samuel is rather one of my favorites. He's the one that comes from Mars. He's the great guardian of strength.
Samuel comes from Mars?
Yes.
Well, and Mars is strength and warfare and things of that nature, I guess, typically in astrology.
Yes. And he's the angel. He takes care of factory workers.
Interesting.
He takes care of your cars. And he does machinery. And he will go after bad bosses.
Good.
If you have somebody attacking you, this is where you go.
All right.
Raphael, legal matters, the arts and poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Cassiel is my actual guardian, and he finds missing persons and lost children, real estate, and he takes care of the elderly and the dying.
Well, Christine, tell me this. As a witch, what type of a witch would you say you were, and what types are there?
I'm solitary.
Okay.
I like to be by myself, but I join in covens at certain times. I will. There's all kinds of Celtic, Dianic, Gardnerian. There's so many different covens, just like the Christians have different churches.
Certainly.
We have different covens, and we have covens for gay people, Dianic, and then we have, I forget what the guys is. They've got the yellow triangle. The men have their own covens too. If they're gay and they don't want to interact with us, they've got their own covens, so we don't deny anyone their right to worship.
Right.
And that's fair.
Absolutely.
You know, some people say, what? How can you deny anyone the right to pray or be in a group when they need to pray?
I would agree with that.
So we have all of that.
Well, let me ask you this. As a practicing solitary witch, what does a witch typically do? I mean, you are also a clairvoyant, you're a writer, you do many things, but just so those of us and there's a lot of folks who don't know the first thing actually about witches other than the stereotypical symbol that they've seen. So what does one practicing this craft do typically? I mean, what goes on in the life of a solitary witch, and how do you practice?
Well, perfectly normal through the daytime. On Halloween, of course, it will be very different because I will shut my windows and pull the drapes, and I light 4 white candles to the corners of the earth. The 4 corners are Michael to the south, Oriel to the north, Raphael to the east, and Gabriel to the west.
Okay.
At the top part of the pentagram is God and Goddess, and the center is the person wearing it. So I will light my 4 corners, and then you do a ritual. I have a ritual sword, which is symbolic of the male, and the chalice is symbolic of the female. So I do my ritual quietly by myself. You pray for wisdom. Now, Halloween or Hallows Eve or Samhain is the night on earth when the veil between life and death is the thinnest, and the old ones return to us, to earth, to help us. And we ask them for help, we ask them for their guidance, and we tell them our needs. And it's a very holy night to us. I don't care really that people dress up, that's okay. But I don't think they'd like it if we did things like that at Christmas.
Right.
I have that weird feeling.
Right.
That they would kind of go, what? But we kind of ignore them, and occasionally witches join in the fun, and they have Halloween, they have their own fancy dress balls, and it's very funny when they do. But I kind of wonder if it will ever come to the realization that they are actually stepping on somebody's holy day. I don't think people realize that. No,
and that's one thing I wanted to talk about in this show. We're going to go to a break in just probably about a minute, but I mean, that's one of the things I want to talk about, because Halloween didn't start out as Halloween. It started out as Samhain, and I was hoping that maybe you could explain what that was and what some of the other sabbats were.
And Halloween are one and the same. That's the other name for it.
Right, but I mean, it started out being calling Samhain, and didn't it become more secular after the Christians had to put their little stamp on it?
Yeah, they put their stamp on all of our holidays.
Right. We are speaking with Christine Jones, who is a witch, and we are talking about Halloween and its origins and the life of a witch. And right before we left for our break, we were talking a little bit about what Christine would be doing on Halloween and what other witches might be doing. So, Christine, you said that you would actually be inside and that you would light 4 candles to the 4 directions.
Yeah, 4 corners, and the one for the Mother Goddess and the Father God, and one representing myself. That is the pentagram, the 5-star, the 5-pointed star.
So so what you're saying, the pentagram, the 5 points are the 4 points of the 4 directions
of the 4 archangels,
and then the 5th is the individual.
And there's the Mother Goddess and Father God to the top point.
Okay.
And the middle of the pentagram is the person wearing it.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So you would when you say the goddess and the Father God, you are still talking about 2 entities, but they are part of the same, I would suppose, I guess, or no?
They are energy forms. They are not people.
Right. No, I understand that, but I
a lot of people don't, though. They somehow want to humanize God.
Certainly.
They have this need to do that.
Yes.
I don't. The Mother Goddess and the Father God are vast energy, but they're together. And it makes sense because we're male and female. And the Father made the male and the Mother made the female. It makes sense. And they're equal in all ways. We have none before them.
Okay, I understand.
So I have a perfect understanding of what all that means. And then the gods and goddesses who do the land, the sea, the birds, the sky, the universe, and then the archangels who are over us, as it were, taking care of us. Okay.
And when you are doing this ritual, or I'm not sure what you would call it exactly, it is a ritual. What else will you be doing on that evening? Just some quiet meditation, or?
On the first point, I would say thank you for what they have given us in the past month. Second point, I would ask for the help I needed and the guidance I needed. The third point, I'd ask the people who were my friends who I thought needed help. And the 5th point is adoration of the God and Goddess.
It's amazing because everything you're talking about is all beneficial. And I think
of course.
And I mean, most people, when they picture the idea of witchcraft, they're thinking of black arts and negative and evil and things of that nature. And they're not. When you use the word angels and witch in the same context, I think there's some people who just go, "What the heck?"
I said that to Sybil one day because you remember I went straight from, not being a witch to being a witch. And I was in the living room and I said to her, I thought, very innocently, I thought angels were Christian, and she looked at me like thunder.
Right.
She said, they stole them from us.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, let me ask you this.
And it's true.
Should they even be called angels, or is there another word that should be used for them?
No.
Okay.
Angels or spirits. No, I'm perfectly comfortable with angels and spirits. And as she said, witches had angels long before Christians. They stole them from us. They stole one of our white Wiccan ceremonies is now their mass. And if you notice that the Sanctus they call the 9 orders of angels are called in the Catholic Church. They talk about the archangels. There are archangels. They snafu'd them from us. They are Gabriel. They made him the angel of pregnancy because they wanted to make it somehow that the Madonna, was seen by this angel, which the pagans of those days would understand because it was one of theirs. And they used these sneaky ways to sort of coerce them into becoming Christians.
As they did with other cultures and other peoples.
Yes, and I object. And I'm waiting for them to apologize. If they're out there listening, apologize.
I mean, I appreciate that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I definitely...
I wrote to the Pope and told him to apologize. I don't care.
Did you get any kind of a response?
Of course not.
Not even a form letter?
No.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about... Because the idea of paganism? Because you told us that came from the word pagane. Okay, explain that a little bit. Because
Latin.
I get that, but I mean, just what paganism actually is, because a lot of these holidays that we celebrate now were initially pagan days of different names. So explain that, because some people are just not going to be aware of this.
Yeah, well, Hallows Eve, Samhain, is actually All Souls Day now, they call it. All Souls Day. In England, they have All Saints Day and then All Souls Day.
Mm-hmm.
So they changed that. Easter is Astera, the goddess of the East, and her symbols are the rabbit and the egg.
Ta-da!
It all comes from us. Christmas was originally on December the 21st, and it was Mithras, the god of light, the sun god, S-U-N god, and they turned it into the son of God. Imbolc is Candlemas now. There's the Feast of Lights, but that was ours too, Imbolc. So all of your festivals are based on pagan holidays.
And
I don't know any that aren't.
And in many cases, these days had to do with fertility and growth or harvest.
Especially Easter, Astera, the rabbit and the egg. Of course, the rabbit is extremely fertile.
Yes, it is.
It's a very fertile animal. My uncle used to keep them.
Well, and the deal is, I mean, because people would have to say, I mean, listen, okay, yes, we have the Santa Claus that comes around on the 25th. What does that have to do with, the typical Christian story? And then on the other hand, you've got Easter. Where did rabbits and eggs enter the picture? And this is where it came from.
Yes, it came from us.
Pagan
what
symbols.
What other holidays have we got that we missed?
Well, I think we mentioned most of them. But talk a little bit more about Samhain, because from my understanding, Samhain, as you said, was the night when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. So, but at the same time, this also kind of recognized when the harvest was in and the days are becoming shorter.
Yes, exactly. Our mages, the bats, the four main ones, are Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lammas. And that is, Lammas is summer, Samhain is autumn, Imbolc is winter, and Beltane is spring.
And Imbolc, is that the same thing as the winter equinox, or no?
No. It's the Feast of Candlemas, and it's February the 2nd.
Oh.
Catholic Church Candlemas, where you have the candles, the anointing of the throat.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. Yeah, I get it. And you actually were originally Catholic. I mean, that's what you were brought up as a child, correct?
Yes.
And this was back in England?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a very rigid Roman Catholic home. So rigid I felt like I was being choked.
Well,
and I just got out. I mean, I just knew it wasn't for me, and I got out early.
Well, a lot of people that grew up Catholic say similar things. And listen, I have, I'm not here to knock anyone's religion necessarily, but an oppressive religion is not necessarily a progressive religion.
Correct. We have another thing. When people first joined the craft, I didn't have that experience because I was with Sybil one-on-one. But they have a group called Pagans in Recovery. And these are people who've come from all kind of walks of life and all different religions. And you hear the horror stories. Some of them got locked in closet in Sunday school because they misbehaved. All these things. And they're Pagans in Recovery. And they literally talk it out. It goes on for about 3 months until we feel they're safe and they're able to deal with things normally.
Well, I'll tell you what, that sounds like other things I've heard of, but that's a good thing.
I don't like upside down pentagrams. I like straight up positive energy. Michael, Oriel, Raphael, Gabriel, the Mother Goddess and Father God at the top point. The person is in the center. The circle is the circle of reincarnation. I only ever have my pentagram upright. If people want to turn it upside down, I guess whatever blows their skirts up or whatever makes them happy, but I don't like it because you're inverting the energy.
So
turning it to negative energy, and I'm not happy with that.
So in all of witchcraft, the upside down pentagram plays no role. Is that
not
correct?
Really, no.
Okay.
So that's just kind of like an urban myth that an upside down pentagram is
It's negative energy. You're invoking negative.
because a lot of people or in a lot of pop culture you've then seen the goat maybe superimposed upon the upside down pentagram.
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't.
So that's just
care for
nonsense.
that.
It's just nonsense, or
Yeah, when they want to do that, it's more like a younger person would do it, like the Gothics or something
Sure.
like that, or people who want to make some kind of statement.
right.
And when they're doing it, then the police find it on walls and in forests when they make the pentagrams upside down. They're making a statement that they're doing something negative.
I understand. Well, let me ask you this. I know that the work that you do is beneficial, and you're about positivity and compassion.
Right.
But there are folks that are involved in the dark side
Oh, yes.
as well, correct?
Oh, yes.
Now, I don't know. This scares the heck out of me. I mean, I wouldn't personally. I can't imagine wanting to tap into that side of things. But why do some witches decide to go that route? Is it just power, or
Usually not witches who are doing it. It's usually other people. It's
politicians?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's usually not regular witches won't be doing negative energy because we have a golden rule. Do as you will, harm ye none, least of all thyself. We say if you do negative magic on somebody else, look out for the snake bite.
It comes right back at you.
So we don't do it. So it's other people who do it. One day, right here on the beach in Melbourne, I was in Indialantic, walking on the beach, and I almost stood on this scissor blade that was sticking up in the ground. And I looked down, and somebody had made a human head and a chest, and they put hair, and they put eyes and teeth, and they had stuck a garden scissor into the heart of the person. And I knew immediately what it was. It was from the Caribbean. So I stood there and I thought, oh, hell. So I quickly circled it and broke what they were doing because when the tide came in and took it, that person would probably die.
Oh, my God.
Well, I made the mistake of going to BCC College. I used to lecture there 4 and 5 times a year at World Religions, and I told the audience what I had found. About 3 days later, I became deathly sick. So I'd upset some voodoo artist who heard me in the audience and obviously took exception. And when I got home, there was a horrific message on my telephone in another language. And it said, "Die, witch, die," at the end of it. And the police had to come and take the tape. And they had to escort me to work at night. And they weren't very amused, but I got to be friendly with them, so they would watch me at night. But die, witch, die.
Wow. That's...
So, witches are usually undoing other people's bad magic. But our rule of 3, do as you will, harm ye none, least of all thyself.
And that's an absolutely positive message.
That's our rule.
Now, let me ask you this. Did, in your life, have people come to you asking you to undo spells or things of this nature that they feel have been put upon them?
Yes. Yes, they have. Or they've come and asked me to do things to people.
Right.
And I look at them and say, no, I don't harm other people. If you want to do that, you do it yourself. It's on your head, not mine. I won't do it.
Good.
If it comes to undoing bad magic, if it's possible, I will. But it's not always easy because you've got to know who sent it out. So what you have to do is to send the healing and correction into the ether, hopefully in the right direction. It's not always easy. And people get in a lot of trouble doing black magic. They do.
I would think so. I mean, it's
horrible.
It's spooky as heck to me, man. It gives me the creeps big time.
I don't like it, and I won't do it.
Good. Well, let me ask you this. Let's talk about some other things that people I know are going to be curious about. You mentioned early in the show that you had once been involved, I think, in a seance, and you said that they were doing the regressive hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess my first question, just kind of playing devil's advocate here, why were they doing regressive hypnosis? Because, and the only reason I say that is because in the course, and educate me here, but if you're doing that within the course of a seance, surely the skeptic could come up and say, well, listen, if you're hypnotizing people, then how do you know anything actually happened? Perhaps these were ideas or images that were placed into the heads of the folks that were there.
No. This was a seance of about 13 or 14 men and women, male, female, male, female. It was a correctly done seance, holding hands.
Okay.
The woman who did it wasn't trained in how to do it. And this is how I got hurt. I didn't know anything about it. This was actually my first beginning experiences. Dr. Raymond Buckland is a dear friend of mine, and he's very good at spiritualism. He's actually away this weekend, and I won't say where or he'd kill me.
Right. I would like to have you and he on the show at some point again. I mean, if you were willing to come on, I'd love to have you and he on. Because
he, in my mind, is the epitome of witchcraft, and he's written so many wonderful books where you can read everything you want to know. Anyhow, back to this seance. What this woman did, she taught us how to get into a hypnotic state. And then what happened, she asked people what they were seeing. And I was susceptible because I was fascinated, and I went very deep. And I realized I was a witch. I saw myself burning on the stake. Then I saw an Irish lady with a headscarf on sitting in the corner. I was so sort of fascinated. But what she didn't know was when you do hypnosis, you have to bring the person out of it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
When she did it, she walked us down steps using our minds, but she didn't walk us back up the steps.
Gotcha.
And so I was stuck.
Kind of in limbo between this plane and the other.
Correct.
But living in this one, still part of you being in the other.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It was horrible. It was a very bad experience.
How long did that go on?
It went on for close to a year.
So how do you live while that's going on? What would happen to you while that was happening?
I'll tell you what happened. My roommate, she died very young. I came awake the next morning, and I walked into the living room, and I said, "I'm a witch. My other name is Keridwen." And she said, "What the hell were you drinking?"
Right.
Exactly what she said.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an RN too. She was a cardiac nurse, and she died of heart disease.
It's interesting.
And yeah, it was very sad. And she said, "What's wrong with you, Chris?" And she flicked her hand across my face, and I guess she didn't get very much of a blink. And she said, "What were you doing last night?" I said, "Oh, it was just a seance, and I wanted to get back and go there and do it again." She didn't see any danger in it. The next week I went back to it, and I went deeper and deeper and deeper, each time not being regressed out of it. And finally I couldn't work because I couldn't think, except that I was a witch and I had to find out what to do. I want to go to New York, and I made her take me to New York and go and see Herman Slater. I got books from him, and I said to him, I walked to his store and I said, "I'm a witch." He said, "So what?" I said, "My other name is Keridwen." He said, "The nature goddess." I said, "Oh, she's real?" And he said, "Yeah." "What happened?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, you've had an unfortunate experience." And he was kind of concerned. But then I found Sybil's book in the bookstore in Mattawan, and I wrote to her, and I received a letter almost by return mail saying she would help me and get me out of it, and she did. On December the 21st of 1977 at 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
I came out of it, and I was fine.
And you went on from then to practice as a witch and learn more about...
I never look back.
Right.
It's like my skin. Your religion is your whole being.
Mm-hmm.
If you really believe in it's like my skin, it's my soul.
Well, I mean, I think that's what it should be. And that's one of the things about religion that sometimes concerns me is that people posture within it sometimes without being fully touched by it. And I don't know. I mean, you can go through the motions of religion quite easily without having actually...
You can't if you're a witch.
Right. No, I wasn't saying that. I was thinking more about...
Yeah, I know what you're saying. People go to church and they just mumble.
Right. Or sleep through it with a hangover, and they were there.
Snore.
You know, and I'm not knocking anybody. I mean, hey, listen, I consider myself a Christian. I went to church, but I have to admit, there were many times when as a child, when I would sit there in church and I was like, I couldn't connect really. I mean, I understood it, but it wasn't touching me on a deep, profound level.
Yeah, you were too little.
Yeah, and I mean, quite honestly, other things in my life touched me on a deeper level. Like the first time I heard a really incredible piece of music or something like that, I was like, all of a sudden, or even like riding a roller coaster or something. I mean, religion to me should have some type of engulfing feeling, which is what it sounds like you are describing.
Yeah. If you go to a witch meet where they're all together, like sometimes you get 300 to 500 together, when the ritual takes place, nobody is excluded. Everyone is in circle, so you have a huge circle of active people taking part in the ritual. Nobody gets to sit down and look pretty. Mm-hmm. You get up and you're doing it, and you're part of it. And Hallows Eve is very much, they get a mirror and they darken it, and they make you stand in front of it and look at yourself. Mm-hmm. So every person walks around going by the mirror and looking at themselves. And some of them like to jump the fire. We have the fires that people jump. Mm-hmm. We have the cauldron. Now we put in things that are negative that we don't want to do anymore, and at the end of the ritual they'll burn them. Mm-hmm. And then you put the positive thoughts. You've got your positive as well.
Let me ask you this. Right now, or at this point in your life, how many witches do you stay in contact with?
Oh, lots.
Lots. And do you guys do that, via the internet? I would imagine that because the internet, I love the internet, and it's a great way for people that have interests in certain subjects or they're activists or what have you to connect with each other, which we didn't have, 10 or 15 years mm-hmm. ago. How do you guys stay in touch with each other? And when you do convene or talk, what do you guys converse about?
Witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talked to Morgana. This is one of my favorite witches. She's really a nice lady, and she's got COPD. She's got a rough health problem. But her name is really Morgana, which
is
makes
amazing.
me laugh like crazy. It's
right?
funny. We talk on the phone. We email each other. But mostly we talk on the phone. I've got the Bell South 2995 where you can talk all over America. Mm-hmm. So I usually pick up the phone. The subject is almost invariably witchcraft.
Certainly.
It's sort of in your blood. Witches talk about witchcraft.
So
kitchen witches who like to do spells in the kitchen. I like that one where you put peppercorns. And you put peppercorns in a slow cooker, and you want to get somebody to think about you, bring it to a boil, and
Greetings, tricksters and groovy ghoulies and smarty pants and Felix and Tom and rats and cats and dogs and tornadoes full of Dorothy and Toto. My name is Michael Parker. This is the second hour of the masquerading carousel carnival that we call the Electric Pyramid. And I hope you're enjoying our discussion with Christine Jones. As I mentioned before, this was a pre-recorded conversation that she and I had. And one of the things that I found fascinating about her and about witches in general is that when in our culture we grow up looking at witches as these fairy tale type characters, and we don't tend to think of them outside of that almost cartoonish pose. And yet, these are real people, and this is a real religion, and they are as devoted to it as the fundamentalist Christian, the anyone of any religion. It's just something that I think over time has kind of been drilled out of us for more conventional, more white bread or more mainstream type religions. And yet, witchcraft, paganism, neo-paganism still exists. And then something like Halloween comes along once a year, and we roll out the pumpkins and the black cats and the orange and the black and the candy, and somehow think that this is just for fun. And it is. And it's a really fun holiday. As we mentioned in the first hour, they don't really see it the way we see it. And although they don't seem to mind as much about us getting dressed in costumes and having fun, Christine made the excellent point that Christians might not feel the same way if everyone else tended to dress up and cavort on Christmas Day. Interesting point. When we return to the interview in just a moment, there's a couple more segments you'll be hearing. I was struck by the thought of how sincere Christine sounded to me. And I took a lot away from this conversation, and it has stayed with me for a long time. I enjoyed it a great deal. And regardless of what religion you are, I believe that you should try to respect other people's religion. And every day you hear about some form of atrocity committed in the name of religion. And you think, well, why should I tolerate something like that? I'm not saying you tolerate the atrocities, but you tolerate the fact that we have the right to choose our religion. That's one of the foundations of this country. And that's one of the reasons that this country exists, was the quest for religious freedom. So when we look at witches and we look at people that follow this particular path, understand that they take it seriously and we should respect it. And it's not just a fun, cartoonish fantasy that we roll out onto our front yard every Halloween. So with that being said, we're going to return to our conversation with Christine Jones. She's talking about Samhain, which is Halloween, but this is the original name of it. It was also called All Saints' Night, the Feast of the Dead, Nos Galangev, and now we call it Halloween. So, like I say, I think we have a couple more segments, and Joe is going to plug us back in. I believe when we left right before the break, she was talking about a spell involving pepper. So let's see if we can pick it up right there.
You, as soon as the peppercorns are boiling, you infuse the water and the peppercorns with the sword of the person you want to call you. Then you turn it off, and then they will call you.
This is brilliant. You know what?
Concentrate.
You know what? You just provided the perfect segue. When we come back for the next segment, I want you to tell us some of the spells that you've done, and I know that you just do beneficial ones, but explain more just like you just did, because I know a lot of people are going to be fascinated by that. Christine, let's return to that spell you were just talking about using the peppercorns. If you could just explain that again, because I know there's some of our listeners out there like, oh man, I really wish I knew how to do that one. So if you could return to that one for just a second.
Okay. You get peppercorn. Okay, you get a few peppercorns and a crock or a pan, a crock pot or a pan of water. Put the peppercorns in the crock or pan of water. Bring it to a boil. Keep it simmering. As you do this, you think of the person that you want to call or contact you. If you intensify the boiling, it will intensify the person's thoughts of you. And then you turn off the pan, the crock pot, and wait for the person to call you. Brian, a friend of mine, he's a musician, he did it, and he needed a guy to call him about drum practice.
Mm-hmm.
And he called him within 20 minutes.
Wow.
And he said this guy would never, ever call him.
That's amazing.
Now, how about some money magic? Let's throw this out there.
Yeah, let's bring that on real quick.
This was Sybil Leek's original spell. She taught me this herself.
I have a pen in my hand. I'm ready to go.
You need one large dark green candle.
One dark green candle.
You need a $5 bill.
Okay.
You need a wide-based candle holder or saucer.
Okay, a wide-based candle holder or saucer.
Or saucer. Make sure it's safe. Put these down where they can remain undisturbed, so you don't touch them once you start.
Yep.
Time to do this spell from the new to the full moon. For spells of increase, you should be working on a waxing moon.
Okay, from new to a full moon for increasing things.
Right, correct. You place the $5 bill under the candle so it's sandwiched between the base of the candle and the candle holder. Only once a day you light the candle using your index finger of your right hand, and you trace a circle clockwise around the candle, saying, "As the wax on this candle melts, so will this money increase." Say this 3 times, and then leave the candle to burn for an hour or so. During the time the candle is burning, look at the candle often and visualize the money flowing freely and abundantly. Do not think of any specific sum or method by which you will get it. Because don't stand there and say, "Well, I want the lottery." That won't work. You just leave it free. When you feel enough time has passed, take your index finger, going clockwise again, say 3 times, "As this money flows to me." And then you snuff the candle out. In magic, you don't blow it, because you've blown away the magic. And if you haven't got a snuffer, wet your fingers.
Right.
So that's candle. And now I'll tell you one I did that was totally off the wall. I had lust for this particular doctor.
Okay. I'm ready.
I knew that I needed a piece of clothing. I'd read this that had touched the genital area of the person you desire.
Interesting. Okay.
So I thought, So believe me, I really did this. The object of my lust was a doctor. I waited around the corner while he scrubbed up to deliver a baby.
Mm-hmm.
When the delivery was over, he discarded his scrubs in the laundry hamper.
Mm-hmm.
As quick as greased lightning, I gathered up his pants, disappeared, cut the crotch out of them because I knew he didn't wear underwear, discarded what was left in the garbage chute, and on Friday night, I set fire to the material, happily visualizing the effect it would have on the person I lusted after.
I'm getting it. Yep.
Well, what happened was he went away for a week, and I forgot all about it because I'd moved on to another doctor, which I did end up with.
Meanwhile, they were firing his loins.
Yes. And when he came back, he came to the door and ran at me and pinned me on the wall. I thought, what the hell is wrong with him? And then I remembered.
Holy cow!
So I did that last. It was just a whim. But I used a lot of concentration, a lot of energy.
And it worked, and he responded actually in the purpose that you'd initially intended, but had since forgotten. So what then?
What did I do? I just looked at him like I didn't know what the hell was wrong with him, and said, "Oh, it's nice to see you," and walked off.
Wow.
Now, the next one, this is a good one, the herb myrtle, Myrtle.
Okay.
We call it fertile. You just get the herb. You can buy it in the health food store. The person you desire, you strew it along the path where you know they're going to walk. You can even drop it indoors if you're careful. And as soon as they walk over that area, they will immediately have effects and thoughts of you, flirtatious thoughts, as they walk the path.
Amazing.
Now, rosemary, the herb rosemary is very good sleeping. You know, you buy it in Publix or wherever. You you just need a little bit of that. If you can't sleep, rosemary induces very good sleep.
Really? Ooh, that's good to know. So, so I could buy some rosemary at a store, and what? I just want to put it in a plate by my bed or something,
No,
so I can
you
get
just make it in tea. You make regular tea with it.
Oh, okay.
Just put a few sprigs in and pour boiling. Well, no, water that's almost boiling, because if you put boiling on, you'll burn the herb. So you put almost boiling water on, steep it for about 5 minutes, and then drink. It tastes good.
Well, I love the smell of rosemary. Let me ask you this. What about spells of protection? If one wants to protect their family or themselves, if they think something might be someone or someone is maybe up to no good in regards to them.
The age-old standby is garlic.
Okay.
You take a garlic, clove of garlic, and you cut it in very thin slices, not anything thick, and you put a piece of garlic in every corner of every room in your house.
Interesting, okay.
And it blocks negative energy. It keeps negative out. The next thing you can do is put sea salt. If you have a house, you put sea salt around the outside of the house, around the perimeter.
The entire house?
Yes.
Okay. And are you saying, so if we had the sea salt, we're literally making a line all the way around the house?
Correct.
Okay. Like a little trail?
Go clockwise.
And do it clockwise?
Clockwise. But the garlic is the one I've got. I'm not lying. I have garlic in every corner of my house. Anyone can walk in now and they'd see it.
Interesting.
And now I'll tell you about mistletoe.
Okay. Wow. Well, you are clairvoyant, because that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you. So, yeah, let's hear about mistletoe.
If you carry mistletoe into a haunted house, the spirits of the house will manifest themselves to you.
No kidding.
It's an interesting concept. Arises if you suspect a house is haunted, you can use this method. The second story goes way back in time. The pagan people used to bring mistletoe into their homes during winter to give the spirits of the forest refuge from the cold. And it's become the love bug now.
Yes. So, okay, so you're saying in the days of old, when they were bringing the mistletoe in to give refuge to these spirits, were they hanging it in doorways, which became this kissing tradition, or?
Probably did, yeah. They had it in their houses to give the spirits of the forest refuge from the cold.
Fascinating.
Ivy is the next one.
Okay.
It's said to have magical properties. For instance, if it's found growing on a concrete post, it can be removed and placed around the head to ease headache. Ivy was also part of the headdress worn by Roman warriors. Lavender. This is said to be in the I would say there are more haunted houses in England than anywhere else in the world. The English people are quaint to begin with. They're mildly eccentric.
Okay.
And in my homeland, to smell lavender in a house indicates that it is haunted. Of course, lavender grows in profusion in England and has many uses. For example, lavender bags are made and placed in drawers to make underwear smell sweet. Sometimes it's turned into lavender water. My mother used to have that when I was young. They make soap and bath cubes.
Yes.
And lavender bags can be placed under your pillow for restful sleep and good dreams. So, cloves. If you have a sore throat, the type you use in ham, put them in a mug of almost boiling water. Allow them to steep for approximately 3 minutes. Drink the water. Take the cloves out and drink it. It will numb your throat.
Fantastic.
It removes the pain. Bucca leaves for rheumatism. An excellent remedy. You buy them in the health food store and you make tea out of them again. And it really relieves rheumatism.
And all of this kind of herbal and use of plants, is there a particular type of magic that this is called?
Well, there's some witches who call it kitchen witches. It's herbal magic, but it's magic. It's herbs used in magic.
Okay.
Witches have to have a knowledge of herbs. They must.
Yes.
And I have a very good one. I know how to recognize them in the wild. I know deadly nightshade. It has purple flower with a yellow center. And it grows wild all over the place, but it's supposed to be illegal.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, the police don't recognize it. They ride right by it, and I go, "Oh, you just went right on by."
Well, you brought up an interesting subject just a few minutes ago. You said mistletoe and haunted houses, and that made me think of a question I wanted to ask you, because I know that you've also been involved in some ghost hunting. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that as well, like explain some of the entities that you've encountered, or just some experiences that you've had in the ghost hunting that you have done.
I've gone through some very weird psychic experiences, and one of them happened to me. A friend of mine, Patty Richardson, I don't know if she's out there listening. It would be hysterical if she is. She wanted me to go to this man's house because these friends of hers said that he murdered their stepmother, or their mother. That was it. She said his name was Roger Mansfield, and he's still out there. If he's listening, God help me, because he's free now. And Patty said to me, "Let's go to his house, and you see if he did it. Use your psychic abilities." So we took toilet rolls and sandwiches, and we went sailing up to this guy's house and banged on the door. He was home. He hadn't been arrested then, and we went inside. Well, inside were his two sons and him. And what happened next was horrible. I looked at him, and I, for once, lost control. And I went into a trance with no control on. I was completely out. And I said, "You killed her. You took the necklaces. She had gold necklaces. She had 3 of them." I said, and I put my hands to my neck, and I closed my hands around my pentagram chain. And I said, "You strangled her like this." And when I came to, the man was sitting on the floor. he kind of passed out.
Okay. You had passed out, and he had passed out.
He passed out when I described how he had murdered his wife.
And the 2 sons were there in the room, and what did they do?
They just looked open mouthed, and Patty was panic struck. She kept saying, "We gotta leave, we gotta leave." I'm sitting there saying, "What?" Because I was still not coming to.
Yeah.
We have to go now. We have to go now.
Was this man eventually sentenced, or?
Yes.
So he was found guilty of this crime.
Yes, he murdered his wife, and he was away for a number of years. I believe he's out now. I hope he's all right and he's reformed. But
holy cow!
I lost at that time. I went into a trance without not an ounce of control.
Well, tell me about any ghosts or apparitions or entities that you've encountered, and what happened.
Well, that was one. It was his wife that I saw.
Oh, so you actually,
I saw her.
Okay. All right. You guys, my name is Michael Parker. This is Dark Matter. We're speaking with Witch Christine Jones. We've been talking about Halloween. We've been talking about paganism, witchcraft. Right now she's talking about apparitions and ghosts and hauntings that she has witnessed. So this woman actually appeared to you, because I misunderstood you.
Yes, she was there in the room with us. Wow. And she was standing in front of me, showing me her gold necklaces and showing how he did it.
Oh, boy.
I was completely oblivious to anyone else in the room except her. I was just looking at her and saying what she told me.
Now, when you're looking at her, what does this woman, this apparition, look like? Does it look like a kind of the stereotypical translucent ghost that we see on television?
Yeah, it looked like her, actually.
And and she was clothed in just normal street clothes, or
it was sort of clothes, but luminous. It was like light, and she seemed like a very nice lady.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but more recently, I had a bizarre experience. I've been in Holmes Regional Hospital. I had a lot of surgery and stuff done, and they put me on Dilaudid. Well, I hallucinated like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was allergic to it. And I have never seen so many disincarnate spirits wandering through my room. It was weird.
Now, this is in the hospital.
In the hospital.
Now, these discarnated spirits, are these perhaps people
who had died there?
Holy cow.
I knew what it was. I saw one was a nurse's aide. She had blue uniform on, and she had, like, reddish gold hair. And I had a mirror in front of my bed, and I could see half of her. he sort of went past me through the mirror. And I was watching, and I thought, what do I do in this instance? There were so many of them, and I thought, well, close your eyes and pray.
Yeah.
And I think that priests and religious ministers should bless hospitals at least 3 or 4 times a year to settle these spirits down.
So you do believe that when a priest blesses a home or a building or something,
oh yeah,
and you say it settles these spirits, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that it helps them on their way? I'm sorry?
It calms things down.
But it doesn't release them from where they're at, does it?
It can do sometimes, so that takes more work. I mean, if you're going to release a person from the earth, you've got to work at it. That's something you have to do separately. It's a ceremony you do.
And would you encourage people generally, say, if they move into a new home or something, to actually get the house blessed?
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
I put garlic down. I don't have my home. I bless it myself.
And you said with the garlic, you just take those cloves and you shave them finely and put them in every corner of every room.
Right.
And that's simple enough.
Oh, this is a very good one, the witch's pot.
Okay.
This is the best one to repel anyone doing anything to you. It's really good. You need a 6-ounce screw-top coffee jar. And you need post office tape, sufficient to seal the top of the jar.
Okay.
In the jar, you put half full of nails, broken glass, anything sharp objects, razor blades. Then you fill the jar half full of the above items. Then you fill it to the top with your own urine. And if possible, you add a few drops of blood.
Holy cow.
Menstrual blood if you're a female. If you're a male, prick your finger.
Uh-huh.
And you screw the top and seal it with post office tape. Then place it in the ground at least 1 foot down and cover it with dirt and leave it. And that's all you have to do. And you do not direct negative energy at anyone. The jar will do its own thing.
Okay, I'm fascinated. What is the jar doing? I mean, and why those particular objects?
Negative, sharp points, things that repel people, glass, broken glass,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. The blood, your own blood, repelling.
Yeah.
You have to do absolutely nothing. I've never seen it fail to work. I usually put the one down in the ground outside my house about every 6 months to sort of regenerate the strength.
Yep.
I've never had any trouble. It's amazing.
Wow. That's
And
fascinating.
Dr. Buckland writes that one in his books. He writes these wonderful books.
We're speaking with Christine Jones. She is a witch. We've been talking about Halloween. We've been talking about Samhain. If the midnight hour of Halloween really if that particular time period has any real meaning,
Yes,
and
it does.
would that be from the 30th to the 31st, or is it the 31st over to the 1st?
31st to the 1st.
And what does this mean? What happens at that
The
time?
midnight hour is the gathering of all the energies come together at the 1 hour, because it's going from one day to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get a lot of power at the midnight hour. Most witches on that night will do their rituals at midnight.
And these, as you were saying earlier, these could be rituals where we're asking for knowledge, or we are thanking for previous gifts.
You thank for previous gifts. You thank them for what they've given you. You ask for their knowledge, because this is a big night for that, because it's the old ones are returning, and they're coming to Earth. They're close to us.
Mm-hmm.
They will impart their knowledge, so you ask them for it, and you will get it that night.
Wow.
And I almost forgot the origin of the pumpkin.
Yes, let's hear that.
That was in the olden days when they were going to the Covensteads over the heaths. They used to use turnips. They carved them out and they put candles in them so that they could see their way, because they didn't have flashlights in those days. So they would use turnips carved out
Fascinating.
to travel to their covens. No biggie.
Right, but still very interesting. Well, are there okay, there's always a lot of people out, and they're in costume, and they'll be running around, and children will be getting the candy, and other people will be at parties or acting nutty or whatever they're doing. What can we do to kind of honor? Are there offerings that we can leave to say thank you to our predecessors or the angels that have helped us, besides just kind of the ritual?
You really can't, because they're energy forms. So incense is the big one we use, because that travels upwards into the ether. It goes into the air, and
what's the best kind to use?
To our garden, I have jasmine. I have fires of love. I sometimes use money incense. I have all different kinds. I like jasmine and the fires of love.
Well, that's...
and then mirror magic. That's another one. Always keep a mirror handy by the phone. If someone calls you and you feel uncertain of the way they are talking, hold the mirror against the phone, and it reflects their words back to them.
Wow.
It's mean.
That's rad. So are you saying that, somebody calls me and they're mad at me or they're lying to me, and I hold that
the mirror.
And when you say it takes the words back to them...
Kind of knocks them back in their mouth.
Interesting.
It stops their attempt.
Well, I have, in a matter of full disclosure, I have to admit that you once told me something to do. I had a negative situation, and you told me a simple thing to do, and it wasn't to harm anybody or anything like that. Neither you nor I would do anything to harm anyone.
No, I wouldn't.
But it was just to help me get through a particularly difficult situation. And I'm not going to say what it was, and I'm not going to say what you told me to do. But at the time, I found it. I was like, "Wow, that's kind of strange." But you know what? It did work.
It usually does.
I will say this: it did involve a refrigerator.
Yeah, I know what you did.
Yeah, and it did work, and it was fascinating.
Most of the spells I have, I've got them in this book. I made a small book, but these are ones that Sybil gave me herself.
Do you have a book that people can purchase with these spells in them?
I haven't renewed the books. I had them, but I never bothered. I still got them, but I never bothered renewing them.
Okay.
Well, I should.
Well, you are a very gifted writer. I know that you are in the process of. You have a children's book that will be coming out sometime within the next year or so, and you do write a lot. So.
Using the Forgetful Fairies. It's very funny.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I want to purchase that for my children when you get that out. So
good for kids. Horseshoes. I always hang them with the horns up.
Really? For good luck?
Yeah, because if you hang them with the horns down, the luck will go out.
Now, do you hang it in any particular area of the home? Or?
Usually people, if they have a front door or a gate.
Well, you know what fascinates me, Christine, and I know this all must just tie back in together, because it's like we're talking about putting herbs or things in certain parts of the home, or a horseshoe, and then of course there's the Eastern idea of feng shui. I mean, all of this is really energy, and what's amazing about it is this is all the intangible which science would deny, yet our history in various cultures, these folks did this for thousands of years, and you'd think certainly, if it had that bad a track record, people would quit doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Strawberry leaves. Strawberries are very good for diabetes, by the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And what does a person do with those leaves if they are diabetic?
Eat the whole strawberry, including the leaves.
Daily?
Like strawberries.
Daily, or?
Yeah. Just a couple of days or a day. It's supposed to be very good for diabetes. Don't put sugar on them. Oh, another thing you can do if you want to attract your lover's attention, sit on the ground where you know they're going to walk.
Really?
They will immediately start thinking of you.
Spit on the ground where you know they're going to walk.
Yeah. Don't let anyone see you doing it.
Right, because then you might be a stalker. That's interesting, because, I know that there are a lot of men and women who listen to Karma Air, and they listen quite often because they are wanting to know about ways to better their relationships. I mean, my show, we don't talk about relationships though that much, but the other shows, a predominance of that information does have to do with love relationships and mending. And
Wicca is smarter. We have hand fastings. And we don't subject people to saying you've got to be married for the rest of your life. You know, we have hand fastings. And
what's that? Hand fasting?
hand fasting, yeah, it's like what you call marriage, but we call it hand fasting. And the high priest or high priestess does the hand fasting and enjoins them to go their way and be peaceful. If at the end of a certain amount of time it comes out that they're not meant for each other, we do a hand separation. They're enjoined to take care of their children and pay their alimony or whatever. Go their way in peace.
See, now, Christine, that's far too reasonable. We can't be having that.
Well, I'm sorry. It's very good.
I'm just kidding.
So you don't have all these crazy divorces and fighting and screaming and, oh, God.
And terrible crimes of passion that we see on the news where something horrible has occurred.
No, we just say that people do grow apart. They change. They evolve. And you marry somebody at 18, and when you're 28, you're going, what the hell did I marry?
Right. Well, I do wish that we could update our ideas. I mean, some of the things that we do, even in the 21st century, are completely anachronistic at this point and are just not biologically or psychologically viable all of the time.
They're not sane, you know, because people kill each other in bad marriages. But if you can go to somebody and just say, I want a hand separation and calm it down. Oh, the other thing is, if you want to always have money in the house, you throw a piece of silver into the house on the new moon and leave it where it falls. It's got to be silver.
Silver?
Like a dime.
So stand outside the door or something and pitch it into the house on the new moon and just let it stay where it is.
That's right.
Fantastic. I'm going to do that. Well, I tell you what, we're down to like our last minute and a half, and you are the real witch. So I would like to ask you, on this Halloween of 2007, is there any wisdom or ideas that you would like to leave myself and the audience with regarding this year's Halloween?
Yeah. The thing of witches is they say this. We say to will, to know, to dare, to keep silent. Those are our golden rules. Because a lot of our stuff is done in complete silence. You mustn't say what you've done or talk about it. It's a very silent religion, but a very beautiful religion, and it's only for those who have done 7 karmas. You have to have been 7 karmas on this earth before you come to Wicca.
Wow. Fascinating. Christine, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And
I enjoyed it.
Well, I did as well, and I know that the audience did, and I would love to have you back on, and perhaps we can get Ray Buckland on with you as well at some point. And for my audience, I want to wish you all a great Halloween. Please be safe wherever you go, whatever you do.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Christine.
Love hides in molecular
Letter 9, on divination and the divinity of the soul. Marsilio Ficino of Florence to his fellow philosopher Matteo Corsini. Greetings. The father of my mother Alessandra was called Giovanni, and her mother was called Angela. Alessandra was in Figlini, Giovanni in the town of Montevarchi, and Angela in Florence. Angela wrote to Giovanni and Alessandra that she was well and would return the following day. They read her letters, and while asleep that night, they both saw Angela at the same time. She appeared to Alessandra in the entrance of the house, and when the daughter was greeting her mother as if she had returned home, the mother avoided her daughter's embrace. "Farewell," she said, "and take care that the priest pray to God for me." And to Giovanni she said, "My Giovanni, how I grieve at your misfortune. Farewell, and ask that prayers be offered to God for me." Suddenly aroused by these visions, they both cried out, thinking her to be dead. They sent to Florence. The news came back that she had departed this life that very night. You may wonder at these things, Corsini, but listen to something equally miraculous. As soon as her son was born, my mother entrusted him to a countrywoman as a wet nurse. 17 days later, while asleep at noon, it seemed to her that she was deeply troubled and was being comforted by her own mother, long since dead, who said, "Do not grieve, my daughter." On the following day, the country people brought her the news that her son had been suffocated by the nurse. I shall omit how she foresaw in a dream that her husband, Ficino the doctor, would fall from his horse and where it would happen. I shall also omit many other instances of this kind. For the present, it is enough to have told you these stories which seem to confirm two things in particular. First, that the souls of men, which are almost separated from their bodies because of a temperate disposition and a pure life, may in the abstraction of sleep divine many things, for they are divine by nature, and whenever they return to themselves, they realize this divinity. The second thing these stories confirm is that the souls of the dead, freed from the chains of the body, can influence us and care about human affairs. Hesiod sang of this. Our Plato confirmed it in the Laws, and both of these men were known as heroes to all antiquity. Farewell.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the 20th episode of The Electric Pyramid. Earlier this evening, you heard a pre-recorded interview I did with a woman, Christine Jones. And yes, that was for a previous show that I had done on another network, but I found it very appropriate for tonight's kind of vibe that's overhanging us on this eclipse time as we approach Halloween. After that, you heard the Mojo Master, Mr. Jim Morrison and the Doors. After that, you heard Joe Kiernan reading from Ficino. Joe, tell me a little bit about that passage you just read. Joe, I'm not actually hearing you, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got a little bit of an issue. I'm not hearing Joe. Audio just cut out. That's quite all right. Maybe just a little final Mercury retrograde issue. But yes, that was a passage from, I believe, the 1470s, written by Ficino regarding the possibility of ghosts being real and explaining kind of the spark of divinity of mankind living after death. Joe, are you there?
I believe so.
I still can't hear Joe. I hear him just a little bit. No worries. Before we get out of here, I wanted to talk about a story that if we had been on the air last week, I would have brought it up then. And it is a very, very strange story. It comes out of England, And it actually occurred in June, but for some reason or another, it just started appearing in the press around the 18th of this month. And essentially what happened was an Airbus full of passengers over England. They were making their descent into Manchester Airport. And I believe that this was on June the 17th, I think was when this happened. And this was an Airbus 320, which is a huge passenger plane. Actually, it was June the 13th. And this plane's on its descent into Manchester when all of a sudden the cockpit crew and some of the passengers noticed that there was a human being, wow, a man flying past their aircraft. They were at 3,500 feet, and the story goes that what they witnessed was a mystery man. He flew within about 300 feet of the plane. The pilots they were baffled, as obviously you would be, as what in the heck is this? It wasn't a paraglider. He wasn't a parachutist or a balloonist. There was just this man flying around their plane. And I'm going to see if I can find some more what they were talking about here, because some people have hypothesized that it is a guy in a wingsuit. But I mean, certainly, if this thing was real at all and we have no photographic evidence, ladies and gentlemen, quit taking pictures of omelets and things like that and take pictures of flying men, okay? We need proof in situations like this. Pop out that iPhone and get a picture of the flying man, for God's sakes. There is no existing picture of this flying man, and nobody knows what it was at this point. They said that literally he came within a couple hundred feet of the plane, and I believe that it flew in from about 11 o'clock if you're looking out from the cockpit. And then I believe he came kind of up and over the plane. Hello. Very, very strange. So if you don't believe that this is a real story, just Google it, man. Flying man Airbus. You'll see it. It's one of those things where we're probably just going to have to take people's words for it, because there is no photographic evidence that this thing occurred. But, I mean, the authorities looked into it, and there were numerous witnesses, and, apparently the air crew said it really happened. I think here's what they're saying. The official report in the incident on Friday, June 13th. This almost sounds like a joke or something, but it's not. The official report into the incident on Friday, June 13th, admitted it was unfortunate and frustrating. There was no way of corroborating what they had reported. It added that the flight crew couldn't be certain that it wasn't a person-shaped balloon. An aviation expert said it's a complete and utter mystery. Well, absolutely. Now, if it were a balloon, though, it wouldn't have been traveling as fast. So I just found that very, very strange. And certainly in the late 90s and early 2000s throughout Mexico, there were the stories of the flying humanoids. And I never really knew what to make of that. The pictures that I saw of these flying humanoids, I mean, they were some types of objects, and they were vaguely humanoid. God knows what they were. To this day, listen, I don't have an answer. But this story, this is really hitting the news now, and I thought it was very strange. And certainly, when we think of Halloween, we think of women flying on witches and evil spider monkeys, or maybe that's the Wizard of Oz. I think of the flying monkeys all the time anyway. But that story, just Google it, Flying Man, Airbus 320. It is out there, and apparently happened at 3,500 feet. Dude flew by the jet. Very, very strange. There was no sign of this guy on radar. And so it is an utter mystery. I believe, Joe, are you back with us?
I think so.
Right on. I lost your audio for a moment, and I had asked you I believe. Tell me a little bit about that passage that you were reading from Ficino.
Very sorry about that, Michael.
No worries.
Yeah, that was, you were describing it very well. I believe it was written in the 1470s, if not late 1460s. And it was written to King Ferdinand's son, and just for the sake of credibility. And it was a discussion on how basically two people at night had a vision of what we would describe a ghost. These two people were in two separate different cities, and they encountered the same exact thing, and only to find out that the lady that had came and visited them, the apparition, if you will, of that particular evening, that lady had passed on. And it was a letter confirming for the king's son that there is something after this, and it was a portion taken out of the letters that were written through various examples on how the soul is eternal. And, it's basically you in the full letters of how your soul is using your physical body to do physical things that the soul is unable to do. And,
Yes.
And it was a great collection of letters, and it is a little tough when you don't get the full context of it. But it's for me, it's always important to remember that these were very credible people in the higher echelon of society and thinking of the time. And so for especially at a crazy time of the church in general,
Yes.
to have such thoughts, never mind to I more or less try to persuade or convince someone of nobility on other things that were not supposed to be taught or spoken of at the time. It brings attention to the importance of why someone would go to the lengths of delivering that message. And
Amazing.
It's truly for passion and belief is what I put forth to it.
Well, I love the fact that he was using the term divinity because, listen, if it's true. I mean, if we do in fact have immortal souls, life after death, if reincarnation exists, or any form of afterlife in so many different aspects or stories exists, then certainly that is divine spirit. And do you guys have any Day of the Dead celebrations out where you are?
No, not so much. No.
Okay, yeah. Well, we do here in LA, and they have a really, really big one at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which I have yet to try to get to because it is just slammed. I mean, it is a huge event. And then they have on the actual Day of the Dead, November 1st and 2nd, they have more stuff downtown. And I'm going to try to make some of that this year. I mean, I'm going to take the kids trick-or-treating and all of that on Halloween night.
Cups.
What's that?
We need Reese's cups.
Absolutely. We need a huge cache of those. That is enough to get me out of the house. But yeah, the Day of the Dead and the whole idea, like Christine was saying, that, you know, on Halloween, the veil is thin. Just the fact that we commemorate the deceased and our ancestors, it's a nice thought. And I love Halloween, Samhain, whatever term you wish to
As do I.
ascribe to it.
As do I. You know, it's an easy for me. When I was young, it was easy for me to relate to the purpose of that holiday.
I get it.
You know, I did come from a Catholic family, and you know, a lot of those holidays and a good majority of the beliefs are just that. Just believe it and don't ask why. You know,
Right.
But with Halloween, you have a connection. You know you're immortal, right? You
Right.
know you're going to have an end. Personally, if we were talking the immortality of the soul, I mean, I'm ready to take that argument every day of the week that I have an immortal soul, and not because I'm anything special. You know, I wish everyone knew they were all very important, and just everyone's got a role to play.
I believe you, and I agree with you. And here's the deal. I've had this discussion with people before. If it's not true, and at the end of all this, we're just worm food, it seems like an incredible shame. But I don't believe that. Just intuitively, even if I had not been raised with any type of religious background, I think I still wouldn't believe that, because it just intuitively, the idea that we live on resonates with me.
I agree with you, and I hope I'm not agreeing with you out of ignorance out of it, but I'm with you in the sense that I feel there is a wonderful series of events that take place in everything that I know to exist. And each one's more important or just as important as the next. And so for it all to come to an abrupt, meaningless end would be such a waste of a beautiful piece of music, if you know what I mean. It's listening to a beautiful album, and right there at the end, you're waiting for a crescendo, and the needle just scratches across the record, and you kick the radio off the desk,
Right.
It's I don't get going that way. And reason tends to put me to believe that there is something. And I think for myself, it's a little more than faith. I like seeing examples of things of that sort. So, I mean, I guess that's where religion really stems from, right?
Yes.
Believing or reasoning. So, I hope I continue to learn is what it comes down to, Michael. I hope I learn something new every day.
I do too. And some days I learn more than others, but, we continue to try. Hey, I was wondering, I was vibing so hard on that Morrison.
Yeah.
I think with these last couple of minutes before we get out of the pyramid, could you maybe hit me with one more piece of Morrison?
Yeah, I think I can handle something like that.
All right.
You got me going, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Electric Pyramid tonight. Joe Kiernan, thank you for being with me. I hope you continue to get feeling better. And I think we're going to spend the last couple of minutes of this autumn evening listening to some Jim Morrison, The Doors.
It was the greatest night of my life. Although I still had not found a wife, I had my friends right there beside me. We were close together. We tripped the wall, we scaled the graveyard, ancient shapes were all around us. The wet dew felt fresh beside the fog. Two made love in an ancient spot. One chased a rabbit into the dark. A girl got drunk and bawled the dead, and I gave empty sermons to my head. Cemetery, cool and quiet, hate to leave your sacred lay, dread the milky coming of the day. I'm the Lizard King, I can do anything. Came down the rivers and highways. We came down from forests and falls. We came down from Carson and
We can invent kingdoms of our own, grand purple thrones, those chairs of lust and love we must, in beds of rust. Steel doors lock in prisoners' screams, and Muzak AM rocks their dreams. No black men's pride to hoist the beams, while mocking angels sift what seems to be a collage of magazine dust, scratched on foreheads of walls of trust. This is just jail for those who must get up in the morning and fight for such unusable standards, while weeping maidens show off penury and pout ravings for a mad staff.